Hello, dear friends. We are very grateful for your comments. They help us decide what is interesting for our listeners. And today, we will devote part of our time to answering these questions. The following question is very relevant for many people. How does the law of karma influence those who serve in the public service? For example, judges, military men, and so on. You and I should understand that every society protects itself. And above all, it protects itself with those laws that it passes. Therefore, members of that society are obliged to obey those laws that have been passed. Of course, there are people who already understand more. They accordingly act according to these higher understandings. At first, they are perceived as white crows in the society, but when such people become more and more numerous, and it is impossible to close eyes on this tendency, then the society passes to a new stage of its development, and accordingly creates new laws of its further development. Executing these laws, a man must aspire to show his best human qualities, and then he will not be followed by a chain of following negative events, and he accordingly will be saved from karmic consequences. There is such a question. A born negative, is it the problem of the one who created it, or of the one who reacted to it? In order to answer this question, first of all, we need to figure out what driving forces work in a man at what stages of development. The very first driving force is simply activity. The next driving force is the egoism of man. Then comes ambition. And then all of this must transform into creative activity. If we consider any situation, we should take into account that each person in this situation will act in his own way. If he acted in accordance with his driving force, then respectively there will be no negative karmic consequences for him. He has fulfilled his task. If he has acted in a way contrary to his motivating force, if he has done worse, then a chain of subsequent negative events will start stretching for him. If he has done better, then this is a chance for him. This is a plus, and he can accordingly rise on the next step of his development. Therefore, in each situation, each participant of this situation has his own task, which he has to cope with. One will be a stimulus for the other participants. For the other, it can be a chance to show itself correctly and to rise to the next step of the development. And someone can play the role of a background for the other participants of this situation. So, if we are already aware of these issues, then we can competently assess who of the members of this group, of the participants of this situation, has coped with their karmic task. One more question for today. Can we relate the theory of karma to religious dogma, which has no confirmation? In the science of physics, for example, there is a concept of cause-effect relations. This concept is enough. There is no necessity for the reasonable man in the theory of karma, and poorly developed people need justification of their misfortunes. And the notion of karma has been thought up just for them in order to live easier psychologically. We are reasonable people, and we must understand very well that unfortunately, the modern science is far away from its further potential. The mankind will have to learn a lot, and science will have to confirm a lot of things. So let's not judge modern science and those who try to help people learn something new strictly. Quite rightly pointed out that physics deals with the law of cause and effect. So I want to inform our listeners that laws are universal. They operate equally everywhere, and the law of karma is the law of cause and effect, but acting already in human life. And knowing or not knowing this law, this doesn't exempt anyone from responsibility. But we must remember that people only learn. They learn to live correctly. And the law of karma, as I said earlier, is a teaching law. A person being repeatedly taking part in the same situations, and he spins in these situations until finally the situations train him to behave correctly. Of course, at this stage, he is still completely unaware of what karma is, because he still lacks the logical reasoning to link these events that occur in his life together. And only on a certain stage of development he is able to do this. Then he can trace that such an event, such his behavior, have caused such subsequent life situations. And then he tries to use the situation in order to act more correctly the next time. Or maybe this time too. But he will definitely receive experience. And he is aware of the fact that he gains this experience. And if something is not quite successful, then he sets himself a goal to do better the next time. If every situation is seen as a chance to move forward, then the development of a person will naturally be much more successful. That is why I appeal to you not to be afraid to live, not to be afraid of making mistakes. The most important is that you analyze what has happened and manage to correct something in yourself. This will certainly lead you to a new road in your life. And then everything will work out fine in your life. That is what we want to wish you to learn, to build relationships properly. And then you will not be frightened by this terrible word karma. And here we must also take into account that karma is not only the consequent negative events. If we have done right things, what we send to the world around us will also return in kind. That is why we must try to do as many positive deeds as we can, and then our life will be changed. There is a very interesting question about delayed karma, but we will discuss this question next time.
Исполняя те законы, которые существуют в обществе, человек всегда должен стремиться к проявлению своих лучших человеческих качеств, и тогда не будет за ним тянуться цепочка негативных событий, и таким образом он избежит кармического наказания. Но наказание не очень звучит. Ладно, еще раз подам.
Продолжаем это, если что, снимем.